We're going to start with some introductions before we hand the virtual mic over to our special guest and speaker today. So I wanted to again welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Golna, so nice to see you. So today's session is the first in our webinar series that we are hosting for 2024. And we're starting with diversity, equity, inclusion, and HR. How do organizations and HR professionals, how do you recruit and retain diverse people? So we'll be having a great discussion about this. I'm looking forward to gaining some insights from my esteemed colleague who will be sharing how best to do that, how to do that in a way that's helpful and supportive and inclusive. So we're going to start with our land acknowledgement. So I acknowledge that the land on which I live, work, and play is located on the traditional territory of the Huron, Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga. At the time of European settlement, it was the Mississauga who inhabited the north shore of Lake Ontario, including what would become Ajax, which is where I reside. These lands are the traditional and treaty territories of the nations covered under the Gunshot and Williams treaties. And as an African diasporic person, I want to acknowledge my African ancestors who came to Turtle Island as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in past generations, and to my ancestors who came here involuntarily, brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. I pay tribute to my ancestors of African origin and descent. So a little bit about me. So I am the founder of MVD Consulting, Inc. We work with businesses and not-for-profit organizations to really help them deepen their insights and amplify their impact on communities by elevating their work with their clients and communities. Our vision is really to help our clients change the world for the better by serving others in ways that are meaningful. We have a core set of values that guides our work and shapes our decisions. These values really propel us forward, ensuring that we remain steadfast and committed to excellence as well as integrity in the important work that we do. So we have a number of services that we offer. One is a fractional chief diversity, equity, and inclusion officer, where I can come in and work with an organization over a number of months, really helping them to lean in to their equity and inclusion commitments. We also conduct workplace DEI audits. It could be a particular department or a particular section of the organization or the entire workplace to really understand, to provide really a snapshot of where an organization is currently in their DEI commitments and really helping them to chart a way forward. We also conduct a lot of research and evaluation of programs and projects, as well as facilitating group stakeholders, conversations, and consultations. So we also do training and development and other things. So a number of ways you can contact us through our website, mvdconsulting.ca. You can email me directly, or you can find us on social media, many of the social media platforms. So next I'd like to introduce, I'm so excited for this conversation, LeRoy Briggs. LeRoy is a 20-year employment services veteran with a vision to see great diversity at all levels of corporate Canada. His mission is to really facilitate true employment equity for racialized groups across the Greater Toronto Area. LeRoy's company, HueMax Recruitment, specializes in workforce staffing solutions, community engagement initiatives, program coordination, and working with government. LeRoy's last name, Briggs, means bridge, which is fitting for a professional who bridges and bonds job seekers to employment. So welcome today, LeRoy.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and with others and really have a great conversation about the passion that we have to serve our communities in different ways and see our community thrive and thrive in Canada. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak with you. Oh, thank you. So I'd love for us to have a real understanding of what it means to be Canadian, and what it means to be Black in Canada. So much of our conversation has been about DEI, and we're now focusing in the phase of belonging. Diversity is a given. We are in a very multicultural community. Equity needs to be worked on. Inclusion is what we're striving for, and belonging is the true test and goal. So when we belong, a look at hiring and retaining Black talent will be our conversation for today. There was a Greek author, philosopher that says, "Start at the middle," and the middle is our current stage right now. 42% of workers are already looking or planning to start their job search for a new job. This is this month. So that's 42% of current staff who are looking for something better. Next slide. Thank you. At the same token, 54% of employers will hire more diversely to meet the labor shortage that's happening. When we take these things into consideration, what we see and what we understand is how can employers retain more of that 42% share, and then how can they also attract the best out of that 42%. Not only that, but for those who are also unemployed, underemployed, or those who are not in the job market right now or in the labor market. We know a few things. We understand that 70% of jobs are found through who you know. It's a relational society, and when you know somebody who works at a company where you can have a reference, a sponsor, or even just a word of recommendation, it goes a long way. And we also understand that Black community has a smaller network than their non-racialized counterparts, and this is really the intent of hiring more diversity through a diverse pipeline. I have a few logos there in the corner, and they're examples of employers who are doing things that I would like to champion. Creating a diverse pipeline means reaching out to associations, professional associations, cultural associations, similar to Black Female Accounting Network, or the Jamaican Canadian Association. I'm Guyanese, and there's a strong Guyanese Canadian Association as well. Really being able to go as far from your personal network and reach out beyond that to a diverse pipeline. Now that's externally. Internally, we want to be able to build heterogeneous teams. Now there's pros for a homogeneous team. A homogeneous team would be a team that looks they look alike. Perhaps they've had the same experiences, went to the same university or college, and so for that reason they're homogeneous. But we understand that high-performing, diverse teams are heterogeneous. Individuals do not look alike. They don't have the same background, and for that reason, they come to a problem, or they look at a problem, and they have various ways of solving that problem. So what we see is that they're faster in reacting. They have a more creative solutions, and for that reason, they end up being more productive. So we go externally, internally, and then we want to be able to attract talent by focusing on public opinion. Now, this is really where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, in the fact that an employer has a brand. We've talked a lot about personal brands. We see their brand in terms of their service and products, but then how are they as an employer? Glassdoor is our most notable understanding of the employer brand and what is being said through social media or through employee engagement and employee questionnaires really shapes how an employer is viewed. And ultimately, that is going to be much of the reason for an applicant to actually apply for a role. They're going to ask, much like going to a movie or recommending a doctor or a dentist, is, for the people who they know within their network, what is it like to work there? Is it a good place for somebody who wants to grow or spend 5 years in that organization? Uh, uh, what does this company value diversity? These are all questions, expectations that talent has, and what we're seeing is that the trend is moving upward, where your social currency as an employer is even more important in the future than it was in the past. And this is the reason for the last quadrant here of how are organizations benefiting the community. And what we see is employers who are active in changing our social and economic plights, improving our social economic situations, that these employers have a strong pipeline that comes from volunteering, internships, referrals, all of these things that work in a positive manner in attracting the talent. That 42% of employees who are looking for something better, and as well as the graduates that are coming out of college and university. So again, these four companies are doing a great job in working along these four quadrants. Michelle, love to have a great conversation with you about that. And maybe we can pause there and we'll pick up a little bit later.
Yes, I'm glad you did, because I was writing notes so that I would remember to come back, because yeah, what you have in these four quadrants, so helpful. And of course, tied back to the stats that you showed, that the workplace has changed a lot very quickly, where, as you're saying, reputation is hugely important.
100%.
And as well as that social currency, that people want to see organizations or want to work with organizations where it's not just about profit, it's also about people, it's about the planet, we call it the triple bottom line. So I really found this very helpful in terms of thinking about how employees in particular and wider communities are looking at employers and workplaces.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, it's definitely a dynamic, changing world, um, And what we're really seeking to understand is the intentionality from an employer perspective in reaching out to that group, because the 42% really just highlights that any given organization or industry is in flux and changing, right? We're not looking for you know uh, uh, a company that is stagnant and 100% of their employees stay. What we're seeking to understand is that there will be some form of attrition. How do we mitigate loss, brain drain from those who we value, and then and how do we continue to go out and select and attract the best talent to our organizations, right? And so there's definite intentionality in building relationships. I think that's what I would also like to say, is that this is relationship building. It's going out beyond our own network, as vast or as small as it might be, understanding that there's still blind spots within our vision in selecting great people.
And so, LeRoy, is it that organizations, so I think typically you think of that you have an opening, you post a job ad, and that's when your recruitment process starts. Is
Yeah.
it now that you, because of this 42%, that organizations are always recruiting through our reputations or through that social currency? Is that a more useful way to think of recruitment in 2024 going forward?
Oh, you said it so much better than me, but yes, you that is exactly what is happening.
Okay.
Is in sales, there's that notion of always be closing, always be selling, and this is always be attracting, right? If you have that kind of sense about you, then you'll start to see the individuals who are interested in your organization. One thing that I also wanted to note uh, is about the statistics, about the data. Is we find that unfortunately, organizations, probably about 60% of corporate Canada has implemented some form of DEI practice or policy, set some goals. Now, here's a challenge. Only 22% of those companies actually monitor their targets on a regular basis, right? So, what that is really saying is that if any success is made, they're not able to understand why that success happened. If there's any challenges to mitigate, then they're behind. So it's really important for organizations to reach out to somebody like yourself, to be able to monitor and assess and evaluate the data that they are collecting. And if they aren't collecting it, that's a low cost and effective measure for success.
Awesome. So yeah, so actually one of our webinars we'll be doing, we haven't quite settled on the date, probably in early April, we'll be looking at DEI and data analytics and really tying
Okay.
that to storytelling. So our organizations collecting the data? Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. Why is it important? And we'll be looking at it from a storytelling standpoint. So really, really
Oh,
excited. Guest speaker will be someone very, with great expertise in this.
yeah.
And so it should be a great conversation. So I appreciate you
Okay.
mentioning that.
All right. I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to it. Looking
right,
forward to it.
right.
Yeah, so I guess we could go to the next slide. Now, those are the four quadrants of attracting. I did want to speak really briefly about, hey, when you're putting out a posting, there's there's a lot of thought given to, how do we project, what it's like to work for this organization, and very much like the resume is the one document that reflects the job seeker, the candidate. The job posting is the document that reflects the employer. And so, what we want to do is we will actually want to have a double mirror or infinity mirror situation happening where the job seeker also sees themselves in the job posting, right? When you can see that, hey, I've done these attributes, I have this skill set. Oh, I'm good at evaluating, right? As it says here, second line, evaluating the best technical setup. Oh, that's one of my strong suits. Then the job seeker um, has the confidence to put in their resume, and that's another note that we want to say is that we want individuals to feel confident in being able to do the job well. I don't think many people are planning on failure. They're planning to succeed. And so, what we want to do is we want to give them a long runway for that. And it starts with a job posting. So, what you'll notice from this example is that it removes a few different things. One is it removes timelines, whereas job postings in the past may have said 1 or 2 years in architectural design or front end design. Now it says finding elegant solutions to hard technical problems. Whereas in the past, uh, much of the structure was I'm gonna say problem based. This is now solution based, right? Whereas, what we're also looking at is in instances where it says collaborating with product managers and designers. This is kind of that removing the gender bias that might be that might have been present before, and then also being inclusive in different ways, and being able to say it says writing both unit and integration tests. We love testing. Is to say this is broad enough where individuals can see themselves in it, right? And then lastly, we have building and maintaining internal tools and dashboards, which range from simple server rendering pages to client-side applications. This is, again, really just being able to speak to the job, speak to it clearly, and keeping it simple. So, okay, so here we have Kabilame. He's a beautiful black man. If anybody knows his story of working in Italy in a warehouse due to COVID-19, the warehouse goes through layoffs. He's laid off and takes to TikTok, and then the success starts to come in for him over and over and over and over and over again. So I love his story, but how I'm relating that in this slide is the notion of being overqualified for the current role that we're in, and it's an unfortunate statistic that 16% of Black workers are likely to be overqualified for their current role, right? And so essentially what Statistics Canada looked at is the number of um, university graduates with a degree and their job titles and the qualifications for that role. And what they noticed is that 16% of university graduates were in a position where only high school graduation was the qualification. I think sometimes I need to say that over, right? We're talking about uh, a labor shortage where employers are saying that there's a skills shortage, that the candidates are not meeting the requirements, and here we have Black workers who are over exceeding their qualifications. They're overqualified, right? And unfortunately, we have some very grim statistics that kind of back this up. And my hope is that we bring that number down substantially, where individuals are working within their qualifications, but also within their potential, right? Kabi is an individual who found his potential, right? And it's a great inspiring story. So um, I'll go through the next two slides just to tie in with the over qualified. Is the first is that we're in this paradox as Black employees, right? Is as the last slide says, is that we have great faith that we'll be able to see a positive result in the end, but we're also brave enough, courageous enough to speak to the realities that we're facing, right? We hold those two understandings in tension. And, we've probably also heard it with the country of Nigeria, where we used to hear, oh, they're the happiest country in the world, right? Regardless of what their situation is, they're they have a positive, optimistic outlook on life, and I think that really is something uh, that translates here as well. Um, so, on our reality as Black workers, we see that 80% are experience or have experienced some form of racism or microaggression in the workplace over the past year. Over 80% have experienced microaggression. Yet 82% agree that their company has made significant progress in creating a more equitable and inclusive workplace. Right? On the reality side, the unemployment rate of Black workers aged 25 to 54, key working band, it rose. So unfortunately, there were more unemployed Black workers in December 23 than the year previously, right? And yet, on the converse side, we have faith to the tune of 83% who see visible progress being made within their company to build a pipeline of Black talent with the goal of promoting them into the C-suite. The reality is less than 1% of Black there's less than 1% Black representation in the C-suite. So there's a lot of work here to be done, Michelle. All right. This is a long game that we're talking about, and it starts as early as possible.
Can we pause here for a sec?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the slide. I love
Okay.
I love the reality because I saw the KPMG report last
Yes.
year and similar finding, and I was really surprised that the numbers were so high, knowing what I know about what happens on the left side of the slide.
Right.
So I love how you were able to summarize that as this paradox between what employees, in this case, Black employees, experience in
Yeah.
workplaces, but yet our hope, our devotion to
Yes.
workplaces and organizations, and our hope that things are getting better and will continue to get better. Yet we're facing these challenges on that. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, right? And so faith is really the currency that we use, right? It's as a man of faith, it's faith that pleases God, right? And so really, it's so encouraging to see so many individuals take on the challenge, the mantle of um, creating better work environments. And it's really at this point where I say for Black HR professionals, right? Continue to do the work, right? We appreciate you. We see you. We are here with you, working alongside. We need, if our gains are to be seen, we need to continue in that kind of faith, that unwavering faith.
So there is a question in the chat. Do you want us to wait till you
Sure.
finish going through the
No,
slides?
let's
We're
take
okay?
it.
Awesome. So it's from Gulnaz. Thanks so much, Gulnaz. So Gulnaz really likes to focus on solution-based language in job postings. What other pitfalls do you typically see in job postings that may deter applications?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. There's actually a ton. Um, the first one, or if I can sum them up, is really based on expectations, right? Employees, job seekers have, I kind of say, these five golden expectations. Um, and so the first one is it a good place to work? All right. And there's varying ways to note what that is. But is it a good place to work? The second is uh, wage and salary. Now that we're in this post-pandemic era, remote, hybrid work environments are probably high on the expectation, depending on the role as well. If we're talking about professional office roles, or for those who are hourly workers, what I would include in there is flexibility. All right, what is the flexibility like? Then we look at advancement, promotion, growth. Lastly, we talk about um, uh, benefits, opportunities to empower others. So, going back to the question, when these things are notably missing from the job posting, then individuals are less likely to apply, right? And it depends on the individual if there's a hierarchy within those needs. I'll continue on if there's no other questions. But when we talk about inclusive language, we also what I say, we want to lead with inclusion. As an employer, I would recommend, instead of having ABC company is an equitable employer at the bottom, right? Moving that phrase along with their DEI goal or vision, moving that up to its prominent place on the job posting. There's other inclusive language that looks at differing abilities that speaks about gender bias or race and diverse bias, right? And being able to eliminate that as well. I think there was a follow-up question. I think I might have saw something there.
Yes, I'll share that with everyone. So Golnaz asked one more follow-up question. What about the candidate experience itself during recruitment? What red flags do you see, or conversely, what good practices do you see for attracting Black talent?
Okay. So again, to be honest, there's so much that we could kind of hit on, but if I could just highlight a few different areas, I think that might be helpful. In terms of pitfalls, are areas where, first off, the intentionality. How when we're screening and we're shortlisting candidates, how many Black racialized candidates are in that shortlist? What we understand is that if there's only one representative out of 4 or 5, that it's exponentially more difficult for that one individual to outshine. And I don't even really mean that based on qualifications, because we just saw the last slide about being overqualified. What I mean by that is the barriers that we have in place, that if there's just one individual in that pool, that it's exponentially more difficult for that one individual to get through those barriers and those biases. So what we say is that there should be 2 or more in that shortlist pool. That's one aspect. When it comes to time, right now there's a lot of testing that happens in the recruiting process. AI testing, behavioral testing, psychological tests, so forth, and then competency tests. There are organizations. One of the organizations that I highlighted in the quadrant, EHN Canada, they were piloting the opportunity of paying a stipend for individuals who were creating the workshops or the case studies that they would present, to say, we value this hour, 45 minutes of your time. Here is a small token of that, right? Obviously not widespread, but being able to condense the interview process, the recruiting process, is definitely another area where that will continue to attract. If you're providing individuals with a positive experience, what they do is, even when they're not successful, they're able to highlight the organization in a positive way, and then maybe make it more attractive for the next person. And I could go on, but I think we could. I can share some resources. Okay. Are we going to go on to the next slide, or? Okay. So we took a quick look at attracting talent. As Golnaz questioned, we looked a little bit about the recruitment process, hiring. Now, let's say an offer has been made, and there are aspects to that as well. the negotiation process that impacts how a company is perceived. But I want to skip that if that's okay, and focus on the onboarding and the 30, 60, and 90 days of probation. Really, what we understand is that we want to weave a job seeker and new employee into this organization as quickly as possible, as effectively as possible. And so we want to provide tools, resources. We want to integrate them into the social fabric of our organization as quickly as possible. So that might be a buddy system. That might be introducing them to the team and stakeholders within the organization more broadly. Um, the universities and colleges, they now hire based on a cohort, and so what they've looked at is, instead of hiring, I'm going to say one talented black individual for this role, what they are seeking to do is to have a cohort. So let's look at the 20 jobs that we have. We have 5 successful hires. What we want to do is we want to introduce them to each other, right? And regardless of the department or the team, and that bond, which I'm calling that initial bond, is imperative in really seeing the success that we want, because ultimately the goal is hire a highly intelligent, personable, dynamic individual, and be able to see them successful. And as they're successful, your organization is successful. And to be able to keep that success and the momentum of that success going longer, 90 days to a year, to 2 years, to 5 years, right? And being able to track that. So it starts with the initial bond. We understand that there's going to be a dip. The emotions, the honeymoon phase, this initial 30 days, uh, reality sets in. Now, this is where the learning curve actually happens. And so the individual now understands the role a little bit better. We want to be able to assess their skills as it pertains to the role and their overall success, as well as the employer should be setting SMART goals. We all know that acronym. So we want to be setting SMART goals at this point. And this re-engages the employee for a new round of targets and really, as individuals. A friend of mine a while back said, she used to say, stagnant water stinks, right? And so we don't want people to be stagnant. And so that's the reason for setting goals, targets that they can reach, so that they're always moving ahead. And we want to provide feedback. And lastly, we want to be able to have a structured review process, right? Where we can note all the areas where the individual is firing on all cylinders, checking the boxes, and those areas where there's room for improvement, and how, again, tying it back into the organization on what are the resources that they can that are provided, for them to be successful in those areas, right? Who are the people that they can speak to, who are subject matter experts in those areas, right? And then seeing how their role, how their contributions, how they fit within the overall picture and vision of the organization, right? So we want to do that very again intentionally within the 90 days, but we want to continue to do that. I believe that might be our next set of questions. I don't think there's anything. Right, and this is the HueMax website where job seekers can interact with job postings of companies who are actively looking to diversify their workforce. I believe strongly that we're individuals, one race of people with different hues, and so what we want to see is an office that has those hues to the max, right? So there we have the name HueMax.
Awesome. Thank you so much, LeRoy.
Oh, it was a pleasure, Michelle. This was really fun.
This really was. So I had a question for you regarding the cohort model that you talked about,
Yeah.
which is I really, really love that. My other hat that I wear is educator, adult educator. So I teach at the post-secondary level.
Yeah.
So when I first taught at a community college in Toronto, I was introduced to this cohort model. Before I'd been through university, I taught at university, but then I was introduced to this cohort model where students enter a program at the same time. They move through their program together, 12, 18, 24 months, etc. And so you see this cohort becomes their professional network. So they're looking for jobs, they're, doing things together. So I'm really interested, I'm really happy to see that workplaces are also using this cohort model for that peer mentoring. How do you feel about other forms of mentoring or resources such as employee resource groups? How do those help, I guess, not only in the first 90 days, but maybe going forward? How are some of these things helping people stay
Yeah.
engaged and in their jobs longer?
Yeah, I think they're extremely important. I'll probably get the phrase wrong, but every muckle make a mick, right? Every lickle make a muckle. What do you tell? You tell me how it goes.
Every mickle makes a muckle.
See, you got it. You got it. Right, and essentially that's what it is. Is they're all tools, levers within an employer's basket or toolbox to integrate and really have cohesion. So yes, mentorship, sponsorship is important. What we see, unfortunately, is that because there's a deficiency at the higher levels, then what we understand is that we need allyship, right? It doesn't happen without allyship because there's not a one-to-one ratio, or there's not enough of a ratio for Black executives to mentor other up-and-coming Black employees. And yes, the ERGs are definitely there for this kind of group synergy to take place.
I don't know if any other questions, but if anyone wants to raise their hand or put anything in the chat, I'm going to continue throwing some questions out there. So beyond remote work, how else have workplaces changed in the last 4 years to be more inclusive, to be more to foster that sense of belonging and safety that
Yeah,
diverse employees are looking for.
yeah. That's a great question. So definitely what you see um, post pandemic is open spaces. So so what I'm saying is the physical environment has changed in many regards, and that's within the warehouse manufacturing environment as well as in the office setting. And so this open dynamic really allows um, for barriers to be removed, where coworkers are slightly or more engaged. There's a sense of greater flexibility from the employer standpoint as well. Um, that is supportive of the individual as a person with challenges, with a home life. So work life balance is has definitely improved um, since before the pandemic, and we're really seeing a new type of dynamic, if you were, for employers. We talked a little bit about the social currency, and employers are definitely now more socially aware and conscious. And whether that means first, some people say performative, but the outfront acknowledgement of situations that are happening on a daily basis, so to speak. But then moving beyond the performative in actually checking in on their employees and be able to meet them where they have a need. So that's definitely one aspect.
Awesome. Well, another question that I have. So, what can a job seeker do if they experience any form of discrimination during the recruitment process? Thank you
Oh
quickly.
yeah, I know. I'm like, oh, how did I not talk about this? Thank you. Uh, yes. So what we are seeing a challenge in is accountability, overall overall accountability. Um, Large organizations have the time to have an employee review, a satisfaction review or survey, um, and unfortunately, what we're hearing, what we're seeing is that um, uh, corporations are not holding middle level management accountable for the occurrences that are happening around discrimination. So going back to that point about data, it really is important for records to be kept, for whether it sits in the HR or the DEI office portfolio, to be able to review that, and then ultimately have some form of recourse that will hold individuals, the particular individual, accountable, or the broader team, if that's the case. So um, what I would probably say to that as a highlight is the Black class action lawsuit against the federal government. All right, is a strong indicator that, hey, even what we want to do is have some kind of trickle down effect, if we can call it that. Right? Is if we're gonna hold anybody accountable, let's hold one of the largest employers, the federal government, accountable, and then perhaps that is going to influence the private sector as well.
That's awesome. Yes, that Yeah, that class action lawsuit is going to make a lot of changes.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of changes in labor practices and employment practices right across the country. So it is,
Yes.
yeah, it is
And
significant.
part of that, the recent victory that they had is the understanding that uh, not all racialized people are impacted in the same way, and that anti-black racism is real. The numbers are there. There's just no denying it. I was looking at, again, February stats. Sorry if I'm going over. I think I have one more minute. Right? But I was looking over the February job stats or employment stats, and noticing really that there's such a wide gap between Black workers and non-racialized workers in earning. This is something that I wanted. This is something that I wanted to say. That is unfortunate. We're one group where the successive generation is worse off than the generation that came here. So, um, what we understand is that it's Canadian racism that is holding back the potential of individuals. When individuals come to Canada, highly educated, motivated to be successful, and they're doing it for the betterment of the next generation, what we're finding is that it's actually decreasing. And the only way we can figure it out, the numbers, is, well, what's the element, right? What is that X factor? And the X factor is anti-black racism at the school level, in the justice system, in our society in general. And so, what we're doing in employment impacts all those other areas as well.
That is amazing. LeRoy, it has been such a pleasure having you with us today. You shared so much with insight, so many great nuggets. I know I took lots of notes, things that you mentioned. Thank you so much for talking with us, spending an hour of your time with us today. I hope everyone also got some great information, learned something fantastic. So you can contact LeRoy at huemax.ca, is that correct? That's your website.
Yes, absolutely.
Please reach out to him. And we will send a copy of the recording to everyone as well. So Angela, thank you so much for that comment. That's amazing. This has been the most informative HR related presentation ever. Oh, that's amazing.
I really appreciate that as well. Thanks, Angela.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. So as I mentioned, we're going to be having other webinars coming up. So please follow us on social media or sign up for our newsletter so you can also attend those. We're going to have one on the law and looking at human rights and legal rights through law, and then one on data analytics. So we definitely want you to come out and learn and share, and so we can all grow. We're on this DEI journey together.
100%. Thank you very much, Michelle, for inviting me. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to our mutual success for this year.
Thank you so much, LeRoy. Take care, everyone. Thanks again.
Take care.
Bye-bye.